On today's show, let's tell you why Craig Porter Jr.'s stock is up, despite the fact that he's on the fringe of the Cavs rotation. Let's dive into it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Thanks again to Jake Stevens, as always, for his work on production. Today's edition of Stock Up, Stock Down, and Holding. This is our weekly exercise where we say we're higher on something right now, something we are lower on, and something we need more information about, something we just need to see how it plays out as we go here. Evan, what's your Stock Up?
Jarrett Allen right now. We're going to talk about him more later this week and just kind of the run he's had without Darius Garland and Evan Mobley on the floor, but he has really stepped up and shown out, and I think more than anything for me, like he has shown a little bit of that edge that Cleveland has been lacking, especially last postseason. I think I'm going to do the math again as we talk on the next one, but actually I'm just going to do it right now. He's averaging about 5.9 offensive rebounds per game over the last 7 games for Cleveland, which is absurd, and we kind of joked about the fact that it's weird that the Cavs struggle to offensively rebound when Mobley and Allen are on the floor together, but I think he is giving the Cavs a lot of second chance opportunities. He's playing with a lot of hustle, and this is a dude that we first entertained the notion of, we as in just like either our listeners or ourselves entertained the notion of Cavs possibly moving on from him, and now I'm just thinking like, okay, he's making $20 million a year, he has 2 years left, he could be signing an extension if he keeps this up, or like just is a very nice piece to have, very, very little compared to maybe what he could get paid if he was a free agent this summer.
I think what just the case for him as far as going up is just based on what he's done of late. It is based on the fact that Jarrett Allen has killed it in DHOs and has scored a bunch and is getting regular 26 and 17 rebound games. It has been that kind of run for one Jarrett Allen. That's where I think the stock goes up for him. For me, it's about that. He comes up later for me, so we can let's just put a pin in that because he is another category for me. He's not stock down. That should tell you where we're going. So we'll come back to Jarrett Allen in a minute and why I think there's still some stuff to figure out here, but that's more big picture than short term. No question, just based on his play, based on how good he's been, stock up. My stock up is Craig Porter Jr. It's a very simple reason. He's going to get an NBA contract. He is going to be on the Cavs main roster. He is the two-way guy amid Amani Bates and amid Isaiah Mobley and amid all the other G League guys and what other options they have, that at least for the short term, he is going to get a real NBA contract in the wake of this Ricky Rubio retirement. Now, do we know exactly when this contract is going to come? I don't think we do. I think it's possible there is some 10-day usage with other players, maybe Sharif Cooper, maybe some other G League guard or someone else, where they save a little bit of money versus the luxury tax, which we don't know how much left they have under post the Rubio buyout. We don't know what kind of room they opened up as of yet. Those figures have not been reported. Porter Jr., though, is going to get a real-life NBA contract. He's going to get more guaranteed money, and he's going to be in a position just to be used as to the maximum as JB Bickerstaff sees fit. He has been a real success story, one of the success stories of the Cavs season, and the fact that he's now in a position to get a real NBA contract and all the perks of that is just, to me, the definition of he's stock up right now in the most obvious way.
I think this is a solid shout, solid pick. I think, and I agree that there's ways Cleveland can navigate this, just on how long they can wait to sign Craig Porter Jr. to a regular NBA contract. But the end result is always going to end up with Craig Porter Jr. signing to the Cavs on a more long-term basis, just because he hasn't been phased by the moment. He has really stepped up. We saw a reduction in minutes as of late, now that like Donovan Mitchell's back out there and the Cavs are leaning more on Sam Merrill and his shooting upside. But like, it's just fascinating to me to see every time JB Bickerstaff gives Craig Porter Jr. minutes, like they feel like such impactful minutes when he's on the floor. Like he gives them a spark that they sorely need more often than not, coming off the bench for them. And he kind of maybe just brings them back to life if the starting unit doesn't have it that night. And it's just fascinating to see who has or maybe hasn't stepped up for the Cavs in this, post Garland Mobley injury world that they're in right now. And Craig Porter Jr. is definitely one of those guys. Great shout.
For me, I think he's going to remain, I guess, in the short term, Evan, where he is as far as in the rotation. And I think it's possible that he ranges between 5 and 12 minutes on a night-to-night basis. Is that to you, where do you see him? Do you see him as being in a situation where that is ultimately where it ends up being?
I would say yes. I think he'll be jockeying with minutes, maybe with Sam Merrill. I think Dean Wade just gets the coach's benefit of the doubt because JB has the most history with between those three players. But those three guys will likely be in a constant neck and neck race to get minutes at towards the back end of the rotation. We did get a little bit of burn at some point, whether it's the first quarter or early in the second. If one of them has it that night, JB just sticks at the hot hand, or he just shuffles, rinses, and repeats, and then kind of keeps riding off that wave just to see how long he can take it, because Porter Jr. is, I'd say, a pretty solid NBA rookie. I think he does have some flaws to his game, of course, but yeah, I think that 5 to 12 minute range, that you can find the minutes in your rotation, especially when the team is healthy, and there's just other guys that maybe just kind of get phased out.
He fascinates me in terms of where he could go. I kind of do at some point would like to just see him get I guess we've seen it already, but an extended 20 minutes for him would be really fun on a game-to-game basis, and maybe there's just a world where someone doesn't come back and you figure it out. I guess if there's a qualm I would have, Evan, I think the knock on him more than anything else is and it may be why Merrill is ahead of him right now, is just the shooting. He's taking under a 3 a game. He's only playing 60 minutes a game, but that's a really low 3-point rate. He's just not someone right now who's going to shoot the ball in that way. I think that's maybe part of the hang-up with him in the way they are playing right now. Is that a fair read to you?
I think this is a super fair read, especially now that at least opposing teams have footage on him, and they at least have something in the scouting report in the event Craig Porter Jr. is out there, where he is going to get that, to draw a comparison, the Isaac Okoro treatment, where teams will sag off of him, wall him off, and either dare him to shoot, force a pass, or just doesn't make something work that just isn't jiving for the Cavs. And like you said, Sam Merrill rips 3-pointers, he will take them, make or miss, no matter what. And I think he is the pristine example of no matter how many times you make it or take it, as long as you're making them, it's all that matters. And I think that just gives him the leg up. And I will give credit to Porter Jr. There was an instance against San Antonio and Washington both where both teams sagged off of him, and then he pulled up from 3 and made it. And that is encouraging, but like you said, less than a 3 a game is not really going to cut it if you're going to get those minutes, and that's just kind of the reality of the situation when you play in the modern NBA.
For the year, he has an effective field goal percentage well above average in the 63rd percentile, according to the clean of the glass among combo guards. And then a frequency of shots, top 10% of combo guards at the rim. Basically, top 10% of combo guards in all mid-range, particularly the short mid-range. Bottom 3% of all combo guards and 3-point rate. Only 12% of his shots are from...
I was waiting to see where that percentage came from, because I'm bottom 12 and Wux, he's pretty efficient in his minutes. But yeah, the 3-point shooting stuff does kind of kill him. And to your point, I would like to see an instance of the Cavs just letting him play 30 plus minutes tonight, just to give me a fully robust understanding of what Craig Porter Jr. is, and that may come at game 82 or whatever the Cavs' last home game of the year is, whether that's 81 or 82. But I think he's effective, and I guess the Cavs scouting department, and I think this more goes to the Charge, because their staff really does a lot of the heavy lifting along with the front office for the scouting region of things, but they found a pretty good UDFA in CPJ, and I think, at least based on what we've seen in his possible trajectory, could kind of answer that question of, okay, who's going to back up Darius Garland for 5 to 10 to 12 minutes a night?
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we are already doing right. Maybe you finally organize one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Therapy can help you find your strengths so you can ditch extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. To use BetterHelp, just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no charge. I'm a big proponent of therapy. I've been going for a long time, every other week. It's been truly life-changing, as I can other habits in your life to work on your mental health. So celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedInNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's better, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Evan, what's your stock down?
Let me pull it up real quick because I have the exact phrasing here. My stock down is just Ty Jerome. I think you can lump Damian Jones into this one. Dean Wade is an honorable mention, but I think he has some value to the Cavs still. But the Cavs already cut the fat with Ricky Rubio. They bought out his contract. They have that open roster spot, but they do have two tradable-ish pieces in Jones and Jerome. And if they're not giving you any juice and you need to kind of look elsewhere, especially when this is a team that's so beleaguered with injuries and you need depth as many positions as possible, if you ain't got it, you got to move on. And that's just where my stock down is. And for context, Ty Jerome has not played since the Cavs lost their season opener to the Oklahoma City Thunder back in October, I want to say. I was not married before the Cavs last saw Ty Jerome on the floor.
I feel like you're kicking a guy while he's got a hurt ankle. Like he's just hurt. Like and he's not like he's hurt. Making.
Oh, I fully understand.
$2.4 million. He's making $2.4 million. I don't,
I understand that, but I think if you are a team like the Cavs who we have talked about this before, needs a bigger like 3-4 type player that can provide more so rebounding but 3-point shooting, and you look at the this of who is or is not available, like you'd assume everyone not named Mobley, Mitchell, or Garland is available for the right price. But like looking at just like the more realistic, like tradable guys, Jerome, Jones falls in this vein. And then you have like the little bit of second round picks you have left. Like if you're able to make like some type of move to make like an upgrade to what something more so you may need, especially with Craig Porter Jr. stepping up as the backup point guard, like this is a move you can make. Like, yeah, it sucks he's hurt. Like going into the season was very, very high on what Ty Jerome could bring to this team, but like unfortunately he just cannot stay healthy or just cannot return to health rather. And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, cut bait and move on, but like if a trade presents itself and Ty Jerome's the piece, like yeah, my stock is down enough that since he hasn't played in forever, that you could say like, yeah, let's use Ty's salary to maybe go get like a bigger rebounding 3-4 wing that can actually provide us meaningful minutes on the floor.
I get what you're saying. I think like obviously it just hasn't worked, and
it's unfortunate it hasn't worked. And I have empathy for someone who's struggling through the recovery. I can't imagine how frustrating it is, because I still remember when JB said he had a setback, and I'm like, oh, that's lousy. Just because like whenever you suffer a setback with injury recovery, it's a whole other list of medical issues. And so I guess I should say the guys that aren't giving the Cavs much minutes, they should be on watch as a trade piece. And again, Dean Wade's an honorable mention because he's so hot or cold at times in terms of his 3-point shooting that he's a bigger enough salary that the Cavs, if that's what it takes to go get like, I don't know, Royce O'Neal's an example, one to make Donovan Mitchell happy, and two, like gives you a little bit more juice maybe. If it costs you Ty Jerome somehow, like I'm comfortable making that sacrifice compared to where I was at the beginning of the season or leading into the season when the Cavs, we were talking about like depth chart and things like that. And I kept saying like, oh, they should make minutes for Ty Jerome as the backup point because he can hit threes and is comfortable enough running an offense. Yeah,
I think the big L kind of big picture is the two of the guys, I guess they went out and got in the offseason, Damian Jones and Ty Jerome, have just been like dead roster weight, which isn't great with where they're at now. Like
Former ESPN analyst they signed off the street, Tristan Thompson, is playing over Damian Jones.
And like Sam Merrill, who they got last year, and like I don't think we previewed very much, and has been way better. And then Craig Porter Jr. has just been better. So it's just like funny how that can work out. You know,
that's the beauty of sports though too. Is like sometimes the guy, I don't say the desire of wanting it more is a thing, but like sometimes there's just a guy who happens to be in the right spot at the right time, and everything just kind of keeps clicking for them. And unfortunately, there's a guy who suffers from it. And in Thompson's case of winning, it's Jones losing, and Jerome being out for so long with an ankle injury. It's to Sam Merrill and Craig Porter Jr.'s benefit with Darius Garland out.
All right, what
is your stock down? Lay it on me.
Cleveland Cavaliers defense without Evan Mobley.
Good shout.
It's if you look at it without Evan Mobley.
I'll be back. Hold on.
Jake, just cut around. Start down. My stock down.
I love to
go back to there and make the cut a little more clean. All right, so my stock down is the Cavs defense without Evan Mobley. There's a lot of things we have learned in the time Evan Mobley has been out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's not true.
All right.
But the defense, aside from some games where it has been really good, I think you think of the Wizards game on January 5th. Really, both Wizards game, it rated out really well. There's the Dallas game where it was a big part of why they came back and won that game. But it hasn't just been at the standard with no Mobley that you'd expect it to be. And this isn't totally surprising. I think this is somewhat of a predictable thing considering what Mobley provides as an off-ball guy, how him and Allen do work as an interior presence together, and how the personnel they're playing right now skews so heavily towards offense. There's something very clear about that. The offense has just been better, I think, over the last couple of weeks while Mobley's been out than the defense has. But the defense just on the whole just like hasn't been, I think, quite as sharp this year. And I think particularly with Mobley the last couple of weeks, that identity of the team doesn't feel like it is there in the exact way. It doesn't feel exactly the same. This year, for Cleveland, like last year, Jarrett Allen, this isn't a perfect end-all be-all stat. I'm not going to tell you again that it is. But this year, they're giving up 1.5 points more per 100 possessions with Jarrett Allen on the floor. Last year, they were giving up about 2 less per 100 possessions with Allen on the floor. The year before that, his All-Star season, they were giving up minus 4.2 points less than per 100 possessions with that on the floor. So it just hasn't been as good. I don't think it's really on Allen fully. I think there is a lot of, hey, our other personnel changed, but the defense just has not been as good without Evan Mobley. And I think as much as there's some, I think, worry, and we'll talk about Mobley on tomorrow's show, and if it's a concern that he didn't have the all-star kind of flashes we thought he might have coming into this year, to me it's notable that the defense is not quite as good when he's not out there.
Like I said when he said this is a good shout, but just for context, over the last 11 or so games, Cleveland is actually 15th in defensive rating. I know that's not like the perfect stat, but it allows you to know how many points they're allowing per 100 possessions. It's 114.8 versus the fact that they have a top 10 offense currently scoring 122 points per 100 possessions. So I think there is going to be like that middle ground that is eventually reached, and we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit more on what I'm holding on for my diamond hands in this situation. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it's coaching in this situation. I do think it's a lack of just a very key personnel figure in Evan Mobley that just completely alters the dichotomy of what this team is capable of defensively.
All right, coming up next, what are we holding on? What are we waiting for more information on before we make a decision one way or the other? That's up next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is over. The playoffs are here, so that means there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make parlays in the Parlay Hub, and much, much more. They'll have Cavs Nets odds for Thursday's game in Paris. They'll have Browns playoff odds this weekend. Everything you could want to bet on, have interest in, just want to check out the odds. You can do that at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On and an official partner of the NFL. All right, Evan, I'll start with mine first because it kind of builds on talking about Evan Mobley. My holding, what I want more information on before feeling strongly one way or the other, is that Jarrett Allen's recent play means that he's now evolved, that he has unlocked something new. This, to me, very well could. I think it is factually true, however you want to look at it, that he has been awesome the last several weeks. No denying it. He has been a reason the Cavs have won a lot of the games they did. His block on Wembanyama is one of the blocks of the Cavs season. All of that stuff is true. But this could just be a little bit of, hey, there's opportunity here, and he's maximizing it just in a certain circumstance, and it's something of a hot run. Before we, I think, and maybe it'll be hard to do that when Mobley gets back. There's certainly some overlap there. But I think it's hard to know that this is just suddenly something Jarrett Allen will be doing now, because I think he will be put in different spots. He will be used differently. His usage will dip. This will look different when Evan Mobley gets back, and I think this just might be a product of the situation he's playing in, and I also just don't know if Jarrett Allen's your only big and you played this full time, that this is just what he would do all the time. I don't really know that this is exactly emblematic of what Jarrett actually, I think he's maximizing his opportunity, but I don't really think we know, and I would be more pessimistic than optimistic, that this is suddenly a new level of Jarrett Allen that is now his level of play you should expect going forward.
So I'm just going to open up and say we have pretty similar things that we're holding on. Mine is just, I think this Cavs team is starting to show flashes of a team that could, I don't want to say run the table in the Eastern Conference, but play a lot better compared to where they were last year. And at least based on what the Cavs are saying, as Darius Garland comes back, when Evan Mobley does return, like, do they want to play the same way in terms of just like offense, or as to your point, like, is there stuff they want to utilize a little differently now that they kind of have a more fleshed out understanding of what Jarrett Allen is giving them this year? And I'm holding on that to see, like, okay, on paper, this team is doing much better than I expected. I think most people were expecting without Garland and Mobley out there, but what will they look like with them out there? And I want to be optimistic just because I am a firm believer in how good Garland and Mobley are. And I want to see what this team does when they are healthy, and do they use more of kind of what worked and expect Garland and Mobley to fit in, or do they take bits and pieces to kind of make a Frankenstein monster of what plays to Garland and Mobley's strengths on top of what worked while they were out, and they finally form the identity they've been kind of looking for all season long.
Do you think, Evan, there's value in trying to make Jarrett Allen be a certain way to get some of the stuff he's doing where he's coming up, above the 3-point line at times to help initiate offense, to do DHOs, to do all the stuff he's doing? Do you think there's a world where this is something for Evan that like now the Cavs should try to emphasize in a major way with Jarrett Allen? And do you think that would help them, push for that top 4 seed?
Yeah, I think so, especially, and like you said, we'll talk more about Evan Mobley. We kind of do like more of a deep dive into Jarrett Allen's all-star candidacy and maybe how Evan Mobley's kind of come up short. But like, Mobley has shown flashes as he has all of his career, but if there's like a bona fide thing that just like works with Allen being the guy in DHOs, like, yeah, you play to that strength more, because if Mobley isn't comfortable, or if it's not working as you would hoped it would, on something that you have tangible footage of working, whether it's Allen being a bit more of the offensive and like playing alongside like a cutting or running around Max Strus or Donovan Mitchell, or even Sam Merrill in some of these lineups too. Like, the Cavs have found some unique things that are applicable to, I'd say, maybe like a postseason game or even just a regular season game when this team is fully healthy. But yeah, I think there is a world where the Cavs are like, you know what, Jarrett has played really well. We have found some strengths that maybe we weren't expecting, just because maybe we weren't asking to do these things because he's the 4th option on this offense on a regular night. Let's use more of it, because it, easier basketball makes life easier for everyone, and also keeps Allen engaged on either end of the floor too.
I am curious to see how you can do it when those two are on the floor together.
Likewise,
I think
it's going to be a little bit of a process, I think, at first, especially because we don't know how comfortable Mobley is or if he has a minutes restriction when he comes back and everything in between.
Yeah, I am really curious to see if there's a world where Jarrett Allen can do some of this and Evan Mobley can still find a niche on offense without a world where he's shooting threes. So much of this would just be easier if he could take corner threes and you had spacing in that way. But you don't, so you're here.
And the thing
that's the hard part.
The Cavs aren't actively looking to move Evan Mobley this summer or something. Like if the 3-pointer doesn't manifest, then you have to ask okay, do we need to play more 2 center type players that don't shoot threes, or that's more of an off-season question for me. Again, we'll talk more about how Mobley's kind of a bit of a letdown in his 3rd season, just injuries and everything else on top of that. But yeah, if he's not taking or making threes at a very high clip, or at least a consistent clip, it's harder to play those two together.
You also just don't trade Evan Mobley.
Oh no, absolutely not. But just people entertain that notion if things don't work. So I'm not just saying people in the comments or on Twitter.com, people on the radio or anything else too.
If they trade one of them, it would be Jarrett Allen, and I would stake my life on that.
I wouldn't stake my life on it unless because something could go horribly wrong and Mobley just wants out entirely. But yeah, I feel pretty comfortable in saying it.
Yeah, just the guy after his 3rd year usually doesn't it's historically you trade the guy making $20 million, then the guy who's about to get paid a lot of money and also is younger and also as good as Jarrett Allen has been. I think Evan Mobley is a better defender and has better passing vision. So I'm gonna ride with. I would just this is a question of both what can you do with a guy like Jarrett Allen in this NBA, but also what are you denying Evan Mobley something? This is a tricky roster building construction, and there's I think a lot more to get into with that. But right now, that's where we're at with stock up, stock down, and holding. We'll be back tomorrow. We are going to look at the Cavs All-Star chances. Donovan Mitchell feels like, to me, the only All-Star they're going to get, but is there a case for Jarrett Allen based on his recent push? What does it say about Evan Mobley that he hasn't had that All-Star leave? Does it say anything about Darius Garland as well? And we're going to look ahead to 2025 when the All-Star game is in San Francisco. Who is on the Cavs All-Star team there? Who is a Cav now who will be an All-Star caliber player in 2025? We'll talk about it on the next episode of Locked On Cavs. Thanks again to Jake Stevens, as always.